Okay, in this video we're going to talk a lot about the different character traits of Yaakov and Esav. Now the way we're going to do this is not the initial exercise we did in class where we, in theory, sort of polled the students about what you guys did or didn't know about Yaakov and Esav. Instead, we're going to look at a series of psukim just in our unit over here, which is the latter half of Perek Chaf Hei. And in these psukim, we're going to isolate descriptions of Yaakov or Esav and see different ways they could be interpreted. So we're told over here, Vahi Esav isho de'ad sayed ish sadeh. Esav was a man who knew how to hunt and a man of the field. What do those things tell us about Esav? Yaakov ish tam yoshevo halim. Yaakov was talk about tam exactly later, something like a wholesome person, or a complete person, who dwelled in tents. Again, what does that tell us about Yaakov? That he's a wholesome person who dwells in tents. And we are then told that Yitzchak loved Esav and Rivka loved Yaakov, so each one has a parent that loves them. In the case of Yitzchak, it gives a reason, Ki tzayed b'fiv, because Esav somehow hunted with his mouth, or had the stuff he hunted in his mouth. We'll have to discuss what that means. And then we notice, finally, the end of this perek consists of Yaakov asking Esav to sell him the Bechorah, the birthright. And we wanted to know what the birthright is and why Yaakov wanted it, because that might shed light on Yaakov's character. And we know, on the other hand, that Esav doesn't seem to care for the birthright. Esav says, look, I'm going to die anyway. So I'm going to die anyway. Why should I care about the Bechorah? So why does Esav not want the birthright? That could also shed light on our understanding of Esav's character. So we decided we were going to look for a trend here by comparing Rashi to Rashbam. Rashi and Rashbam are grandfather and grandson. Rashi, who's more familiar to many of you, I'm sure you know that he often will cite interpretations from the Midrash. And we're going to see in many of those interpretations, Rashi takes relatively strong contrasting views of Yaakov and Esav, in which Yaakov is a hero, and anything about Yaakov that could be interpreted in different ways, Rashi will interpret it in a particularly positive and favorable way about Yaakov. Then when it comes to Esav, we're going to see the exact opposite. Anything that's a little bit vague or unclear about Esav's character, Rashi is going to interpret in a particularly negative way. And then along comes Rashbam. Rashbam is Rashi's grandson. Rashbam is Rashi's oldest grandson, and so even though Rashi died at 65, Rashbam was old enough to have real mature conversations with him. And Rashbam writes in one place that Rashi, his grandfather, cited many interpretations from the Midrash, and Rashi then told his grandson Rashbam towards the end of Rashi's life that if he had the chance, he would have liked to also write another commentary just based on the pshat, the simple interpretations of the psukim. And so Rashbam sets out to do that, since Rashi didn't live long enough to do it himself. And so Rashbam, by moving away from a lot of these midrashic interpretations that highlight the positives of Yaakov and the negatives of Esav, Rashbam is going to give us interpretations in which still Esav is a basically negative character and Yaakov is a basically positive character, but the contrast is less extreme. Both Yaakov and Esav are a little bit more complex, a little bit more gray, rather than being black and white heroes or villains. With that in mind, you see on this sheet that I gave you a lot of text of Rashi's commentary and Rashbam's commentary, but we're going to skip down here to a similar page that you see here, in which I filled everything in. Because the way I filled it in, Rashi in green and Rashbam in red, everything is filled in here with exact quotes from Rashi and from Rashbam. So we're going to see the key lines from that greater text that you saw in the handout, where we see how they interpret each of these phrases. So, says Rashi first, when we're told Esav was an isho de'ad sayed, a man who knows how to hunt, the same word sayed, to hunt, can also mean to trap, right? It's part of how you hunt. One of the ways hunters catch animals is they lay traps, right? They have a fish. If they're fishermen, they have a net that the fish get caught in. Or if they're shooting animals, or killing animals, they might have some sort of a net or a bear trap they set out to catch the bear, or catch the deer, whatever animal they want to hunt. So that same word can mean to trap. So Rashi says, Esav wasn't just someone who knew how to hunt in the sense of how to shoot a deer or shoot a goat. in those days it would have been shooting with an arrow. But he knew also latsud l'ramot et aviv b'fiv. He knew how to hunt in the sense of trapping, to trap his father, like to trick, to deceive his father. L'ramot, that's a very negative word. A rama is a cheater, someone who's fundamentally dishonest. So Esav wasn't just that he was a hunter in the sense of hunting for sport. He was somebody where the whole way he carried himself was all about trapping others, that he would deceive his father and present himself to his father as a better person than he really was. Esav was also an ish sadeh, a man of the field. So what does that mean? That clearly means to actually be out in the field hunting animals, right? Sodeh b'kashto chayot v'ofot. He would use his bow and arrow, to hunt animals and birds. But Rashi adds an extra word here, adam batel, someone who sat around doing nothing but that. Now to say that Esav did nothing but hunt these animals with his bows and arrows is kind of passing judgment on the idea of being a hunter, to view it very negatively. If I were to say about someone that they sit around doing nothing, that implies that whatever they're doing has no value. You wouldn't say about a doctor, he sits around doing nothing but treating patients all day. Because treating patients all day is a valuable thing that keeps people healthy and can even save lives. So you wouldn't say he does nothing all day except for that. Whereas if someone really does nothing of value, maybe they spend all day, gambling in a casino, you might say they do nothing all day, because the thing they're doing is inherently a waste of time at best, perhaps even destructive for society. And so to say about Esav, he's an ish sadeh, adam batel v'tzodeh b'kashto, he's someone who does nothing all day except hunting, that implies that Rashi views the act of hunting in a very negative way. He's just sitting there shooting arrows at animals all day, which is as bad as today you'd say the guy's just binge watching TV all day, or gambling in a casino all day, playing slot machines. When Rashbam looks at these same two phrases, he doesn't see them at all as negatively. He doesn't even comment on the words ish sadeh, a man of the field, because we know that means hunting in the field. Now, Yudayat Sayed, Rashbam says that means hunting, latsud sayed la'avid, hunting prey to bring it home. Now, that's a much more positive view of hunting. If I say he was a hunter who would hunt stuff, la'avi, to bring it home, that means he's hunting for food. That's not a complete waste of time. Remember, this is before the Torah was given. Esav didn't have to shecht an animal in order to eat it. If he's really out in the field all day with his bows and arrows, shooting arrows at deer and goats in order to hunt them and bring home their meat for dinner, then he's not an adam batel, he's not someone who does nothing constructive. Right? That act of hunting, if it's hunting for food, is a constructive act. And so it may still be telling us that Esav is someone who has a violent profession that involves killing animals, but it's not nearly as negative a portrayal as Esav as saying that the hunting was basically a waste of time, was for no constructive purpose. Today we'd say he only hunted for sport. And moreover, it's certainly not as extreme as Rashi, who distinguishes Yodei Tzayed from Ish Sadeh. This is the man of the field, that's when he's hunting animals. But the word Tzayed before that also means to entrap and deceive human beings, to mislead his father. Now what about Yaakov? Yaakov was an Ish Tam Yoshev Ohalim. So Rashi takes this idea of Tam, complete or whole, wholesome, to say, Kilibo kein fiv. Whatever was in his heart, that's what he said, right? Unlike Esav, who would deceive people, Rashi would always say what he thought. He wouldn't think one thing, but tell you something else. And Rashi takes this very far. To be sort of wholesome and pure and complete, he says, it's not just that Yaakov was honest, he was so honest he wasn't capable of being dishonest. Misha eno charif l'ramot. He wasn't sharp, right? He wasn't particularly sharp in the sense of being like smart or bright, l'ramot, for cheating, right? You can all think of people you might know that you think of as very innocent people, that you think not only do they tell the truth, but they wouldn't even know how to cheat if they wanted to. They're such pure souls. So that's how Yaakov is presented by Rashi when Rashi interprets Ish Tam. And what does it mean that Yaakov dwelled in the tents? Says Rashi, Alo shel Shem ve'ever. He dwelled in the tents of Shem and Aver. I wrote in my comments on the handout, Shem and Aver were two ancestors of Avraham, who were thought in the Midrash to be very pious, holy people. Now, we didn't have the Torah that we have today, but whatever their equivalent of Torah would have been, connecting with God, learning about God, that's what Shem and Aver did according to the Midrash. So when Rashi says that Yaakov went to their tent, it would be like today saying somebody went to a yeshiva or to a Beit Midrash to learn Torah all day. So Rashi is interpreting this idea of Yaakov in the tent as a very holy pursuit. Yaakov is so pure, so honest, he can never bring himself to cheat if he wanted to. And so instead he spends all his time learning Torah with Shem and Ever and connecting with God. Whereas Rashbam, he says, Yoshev Olim, he dwelled in tents, meaning he was a nomad, which is the way shepherds lived. Ro'et son aviv, he herded his father's sheep. So that's still a very positive thing, right? Rashi is saying that Yaakov cares enough to tend his father's sheep, so it's a nice thing to do for the family. And we've discussed before as well how being a shepherd may be a profession the Torah particularly admires, right? That Hevel was a shepherd as opposed to Cain, and God preferred Hevel's offering. We've seen already that Avraham was a shepherd. Yitzchak we didn't learn so much about, but Yitzchak was a shepherd as well. And so Yaakov is following the footsteps of Avraham and Yitzchak. He's doing a profession that they did. So Rashbam certainly thinks this is a positive, but Rashbam's not taking it as far as Rashi is. Rashi takes Yaakov to be someone who's sitting in a Beit Midrash and learning Torah all day. Instead, Rashbam said he was going into the family profession of being a shepherd, which is a nice, noble profession. Now, Yitzchak loves Esav because Esav brought tzayid, which at simple meaning is the hunted food, the prey that Esav hunted. He brought that to Yitzchak's mouth, to his mouth. So Rashbam says, yeah, that's what the pasuk means. Pshuto ketargumot. Pshat is like we see in the Targum, means sidei have achel. Yitzchak achel, he ate from the tzayid, the prey, the meat of the dead animals that Esav hunted. Rashi also acknowledges that. If you look in the Rashi inside, Rashi also says pshuto ketargumo first, but then Rashi adds something else. After Rashi says the pshat is that it was meat that Esav hunted that was befiv shel Yitzchak in Yitzchak's mouth, Rashi then adds umidrasho, but in the Midrash, this pasuk is taken differently. Fiv here, his mouth, is taken in the Midrash to mean Esav's mouth. That Yitzchak loved Esav because Esav hunted with his mouth. That goes back to what we said before. Esav could deceive with his mouth. Yitzchak loved Esav because Esav misled him. If Yitzchak knew who Esav was, says this Midrash, Yitzchak would not have liked Esav. But because Esav was a very dishonest person, he would say things to Yitzchak to present himself as if he wanted to learn Torah, or connect with God, or be a fine human being. Therefore, Yitzchak loved him. So this Midrash is taking an approach where really Esav is such a horrible person. If only Yitzchak knew what Esav was really like, Yitzchak would not have loved him. And again, in order to accomplish this interpretation, it's taking the word befiv with his mouth, where the pashup pshat of it, according to Rashi and Rashbam, is Yitzchak's mouth. That Yitzchak's mouth ate the meat that Esav hunted, and he liked that meat, and so he liked the fact that Esav brought him dinner. The Midrash is taking it instead to mean his mouth, Esav's mouth. That Esav used his mouth to deceive his father. Now, Yaakov, last thing I want to talk about here, so we have 2 minutes left in the video, is when Yaakov then says, sell me your Bechorah. So we asked, what's the Bechorah, and why does Yaakov want it? So Rashi says that the avoda bebechorah, the service, the temple service in the Beit HaMikdash that we know is done by Kohanim, originally it was supposed to be done by firstborn sons. And later God changed the plan for reasons we're not going to discuss in this video. So at this time, Yaakov figures the firstborn, the one who has the birthright, is going to work in the Mishkan in the Beit HaMikdash someday. And he says, in Rasha zeh kedai l'hakriv l'kadosh baruch hu. He says, this Rasha Esav is not going to make for a good Kohen Gadol. I want to be the one who does the avoda, who does the service in the Mishkan in the Beit HaMikdash. And so, according to Rashi, Yaakov wants the Bechorah because the Bechorah, the birthright, has the spiritual dimension of being the equivalent of the family Kohen, and Yaakov wants that spiritual element. Rashbam says, no, the Pashup Pshat is Mechor li chelek bechoratcha roi lecha b'mamonavi. The simple Pshat is that Yaakov wanted the chelek ha-bechorah, that extra portion of firstborn gets. A firstborn in halacha inherits a double portion. Yaakov wanted that. Which again, it's okay. He bought it fair and square with lentil soup. It doesn't necessarily make Yaakov look bad, but it doesn't make Yaakov look especially good either. He's just somebody who's a businessman. He wants a good business deal here to trade some soup now for money in the future. And so too, when Esav rejects the Bechorah and agrees to this deal, Rashi makes Esav look very negative. Esav says, Hinei anochi holech lamut, I'm going to die. Says Rashi, what does he mean? Ani holech al yada lamut, I'm going to die al yada, through this thing of the service. Shebiza avodato shel makom. Esav's putting down the service of God. In other words, according to Rashi, Esav's concerned, you know what's going to kill me? If I try and serve God by bringing korbanot someday in a Mishkan or a Beit HaMikdash, I'm going to mess up because I'm not going to take it seriously, and then God will kill me for that. Whereas Rashbam says no, it's not that Esav's worried about any temple service. Esav's just saying, I'm a hunter, I may die soon and not outlive my father.